Senator Cruz, thank you for joining us this morning. Let's begin with that news about Justice Scalia. You said that President Obama should wait to name a successor, but Ronald Reagan nominated Anthony Kennedy with 13 months left in his term, was confirmed in February 1988. President Obama has more than 10 months left in his term. Why isn't it his right to nominate a justice and the Senate's responsibility to give that nominee an up or down vote?
George, the Senate has not confirmed a nominee that was named in the final year, an election year, in 80 years. This is a lame duck president. And by the way, the only reason Anthony Kennedy was nominated that late is that Democrats in the Senate had gone after and defeated two previous nominees, Robert Bork, which set a new standard for partisan attacks on a nominee, and Doug Ginsburg. So it was the Democrats that had dragged it out for many months to make it that late. And right now, the court is exquisitely balanced. Justice Scalia, someone I've known for over 20 years, it was an extraordinary man, principled jurist, faithful to the Constitution. His impact on the court was incomparable. As Ronald Reagan was to the presidency, so Justice Scalia was to the court. And this is a 5-4 court. This next election needs to be a referendum on the court. The people need to decide, and I'm very glad that the Senate is agreeing with what I called for, that we should not allow a lame duck president to essentially capture the Supreme Court in the waning months of his presidency.
So does that mean that you're going to filibuster anyone that President Obama nominates?
Absolutely. This should be a decision for the people, George. We've got an election, and, you know, Democrats, I cannot wait to stand on that stage with Hillary Clinton or with Bernie Sanders and take the case to the people. What vision of the Supreme Court do you want? Let the election decide. If the Democrats want to replace this nominee, they need to win the election. But you know what? I don't think the American people want a court that will strip our religious liberties. I don't think the American people want a court that will mandate unlimited abortion on demand, partial birth abortion with taxpayer funding and no parental notification. And I don't think the American people want a court that will write the Second Amendment out of the Constitution. All of those are 5-4 issues that are hanging in the balance.
But the people elected President Obama, didn't they?
They did, but that was 3 years ago, and elections have consequences. The people also gave us a Republican Senate this last election because they were fed up with Barack Obama's lawlessness. But Justice Scalia's passing also has a profound impact on this primary. It underscores the stakes for the people of South Carolina. As they're looking at the individuals on that stage, they're asking, who can I trust? Who do I know will defend the Constitution and will defend the Bill of Rights? Because the pattern we've seen, George, and you're a veteran of these battles for many years, Democrats understand the stakes, and they fight tooth and nail for left-wing judicial activists. Far too many Republicans don't care about the court, don't invest political capital in it, and it's why so many Republican nominees have turned out to be disasters. And let me say something in particular to the veterans in the state of South Carolina. To the veterans in South Carolina, your Second Amendment rights are hanging in the balance. Justice Scalia's, one of his biggest opinion was the Heller decision. It was 5-4. Upholding the individual right to keep and bear arms. If an additional liberal justice goes to the court, we're one justice away from the Second Amendment being written out, and if Donald Trump becomes president, the Second Amendment will be written out of the Constitution because it is abundantly clear that Donald Trump is not a conservative. He will not invest the capital to confirm a conservative, and so the result will be the same. Whether it's Hillary, Bernie, or Donald Trump, the Second Amendment will go away.
He says you're wrong, he says he will, and he says your judgment should be questioned because you supported John Roberts.
Listen, number one, I did not appoint John Roberts. George W. Bush did. Now, once the president made the appointment, I supported that nomination. That was a mistake. But I would have appointed Mike Ludig, my former boss, Scalia's very first law clerk, and more broadly, you've got to look at Donald Trump's history. This is a man who for 4 decades has supported liberal Democrats. Donald Trump supported Jimmy Carter over Ronald Reagan. Donald Trump gave money to Chuck Schumer, to Harry Reid, to Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump supported John Kerry over George W. Bush. Now, let me tell you, George, anyone that writes checks to Chuck Schumer and Harry Reid and Jimmy Carter and Hillary Clinton does not care about conservative justices on the court. Donald Trump himself, you know, the one person he has suggested that would make a good justice is his sister, who is a Court of Appeals judge appointed by Bill Clinton. She is a hardcore pro-abortion liberal judge. And he said she would make a terrific justice. So the people
he
of
has
South
also said
Carolina
that there's be a
need to
conflict
know
of interest there and he would not appoint her.
But it gives you an example of the type of people he would be looking to. The type of people he would be looking to. Donald Trump is not a conservative. For his entire life, he has been self-described very, very pro-choice. He supported partial birth abortion. You know, yesterday, he defended Planned Parenthood and federal taxpayer funding for Planned Parenthood on the debate stage. George, have you ever seen a Republican on a Republican debate stage defending taking federal taxpayer money and giving it to Planned Parenthood? He said he thinks they do terrific things. I don't think Planned Parenthood does terrific things, and I don't think the conservatives of South Carolina do either.
It certainly has been a long time. I've never seen you unload on Donald Trump like you just have in the last couple of minutes. Is that because you're concerned that if he wins South Carolina, he can't be stopped?
What I'm concerned about, George, is our country is in balance. I've devoted my entire life to fighting to defend the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. The Heller decision, I represented 31 states in Heller defending the Second Amendment. We won that case. You know, we talked about abortion restrictions. I represented a coalition of states defending the federal ban on partial birth abortion. We won that case 5-4. I don't want to see our liberties taken away. You know, my daughters, Caroline and Catherine, are 7 and 5. I don't want to have to look at my daughters and say, the freedoms that America has had for 2 centuries, you don't get because we didn't step up and pull it back. And Justice Scalia's passing, I think, really changes the entire contours of this race. The time for the circus and the reality show is over. This is a serious choice, and we are talking about losing our basic liberties if we get this wrong. And it's why I have so much faith in the people of South Carolina that they value liberty, they value the Constitution. And I'll tell you one final point, which is we're also choosing a commander-in-chief. This is a dangerous world, and it doesn't make any sense to appoint someone, to elect someone as commander-in-chief who doesn't understand the nature of our enemies. You know, last night, Donald Trump defended his calling for George W. Bush to be impeached. That is not consistent with the Constitution, and those are the views of the fever swamps of the left. That's where Donald comes from, is the fevered swamps of the left. He's supporting John Kerry and saying, let's impeach George W. Bush. That is not a commander-in-chief fit to keep this country safe.
Senator Cruz, you put a lot on the table there. Thanks for joining us this morning.